In this video, we're looking at King Josiah, and he is found in 2 Chronicles 34 and 35. He's really the last faithful king, and because of his faithfulness and his devotion to the Lord, he's able to avoid the calamity that will come to his ancestors. In 2 Chronicles 33, verses 1 to 20, we have the wicked king Manasseh, who later repents. He returns to the Lord and brings somewhat of a reform to the Lord in the land of Judah. But who follows Manasseh is his king Amon. And we see him in 2 Chronicles 33, verses 21 to 25, who doesn't bring any renewal to Israel. Amon led Israel into more and more ungodliness, and now we have his son reigning in Judah, Josiah. And there's really 5 main parts to the life of Josiah. We have his reforms in 34 verses 1 to 7. We see that the law of God is found in verses 8 to 21 of chapter 34. In 2 Chronicles 34, 22 to 23, Huldah exhorts Israel with a prophecy from the Lord. In 2 Chronicles 35, verses 1 to 19, Josiah keeps the Passover. And then in 35 of 2 Chronicles, verses 20 to 27, we have the pride of Josiah and his death. Let's look at the reforms of Josiah in 2 Chronicles 34, verses 1 to 7. Well, Josiah becomes king at the very young age of 8 years old. And his reign goes for 31 years. So this is certainly a longer reign in the life of Judah. In verse 2, Josiah was a righteous king. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. He walked in the same way his father David walked. He did not turn aside from the right to the left. And that's a Hebrew phrase to speak about obedience to the Lord. It's actually used in Deuteronomy chapter 5. It's also used in Proverbs 4. But in Deuteronomy 5:32, you shall be careful, therefore, to do as the Lord your God has commanded you. You shall not turn aside to the right or to the left. In essence, you're to stay on the path of the Lord. So Josiah does right in the eyes of the Lord. But he also seeks God. And we see this in verses 3 to 7. It says, he seeks God. And when you seek the Lord, it means you're obedient to him. It's just not saying you're seeking the Lord and doing your own thing. You obey the Lord. You follow the Lord. You follow the Lord's commands. And we see that Josiah does a complete purge of all the wickedness, all the idolatry in the land of Judah. The high places, the Asherim, the idols, the altars of Baal, and incense altars are all destroyed. It's actually the thing that Israel is commanded to do in the book of Exodus, what they're to do with the idols of the people of the land they will inhabit, the nation of Israel. This act of Josiah is a sign of faithful commitment that he is truly seeking the Lord, because he purges Judah of all idolatry and pagan worship. In 2 Chronicles 34, verses 8 to 21, we see that the book of the law is found. In verses 18 to 13, we see that money is gathered from the people of Israel, and it's given to those in charge of those who are caring for the temple, and that money is given to them so that the temple can be repaired. In verse 14, Hilkiah, the priest, finds the book of the law given to Moses. And this probably refers to the book of Deuteronomy. In Deuteronomy 12, it speaks how people are to avoid idolatry. It as well, in the book of Deuteronomy 27 and 28, those 2 chapters, speaks about the curses that we're later going to hear about in the prophecy from Huldah. In verse 19, when King Josiah hears the word of the law, he tears his clothes. He shows true humility. He has sorrow for his sin. He's sorrowful that Israel has rebelled against the Lord. And he asked Hilkiah to inquire of the Lord. Josiah recognizes the wrath of God against Judah. Judah has been rebellious. They've not obeyed the words of the Lord. They've had wicked kings like Amon who led them into more and more idolatry. But then Judah gets a word from the Lord from Huldah in verses 22 to 33 of chapter 34 of Chronicles. She's a prophetess, and she brings a word from the Lord to the nation of Judah and King Josiah. She pronounces that indeed judgment is coming to the land because Judah has acted in rebellion against the Lord. She says in verses 24 and 25, "Thus says the Lord, behold, I will bring disaster upon this place and upon its inhabitants, all the curses that are written in the book that was read before the king of Judah." That's pointing us back to Deuteronomy 27:28. All these curses come upon Israel if they rebel against God. She continues, "Because they have forsaken me and have made offerings to other gods that they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath will be poured out on this place and will not be quenched." The curses in Deuteronomy 27 and 28 will be fulfilled in Israel because of their great rebellion against the Lord. In Chronicles 34, 27 to 28, Josiah hears the word of the Lord and he repents before the Lord. In verses 31 to 33, Josiah makes a covenant with the Lord, and he calls the land to commit themselves, the people of Judah, to the Lord, and to purge themselves and purge the land of any remaining wickedness. But we see another great act of faithfulness of Josiah in 35 verses 1 to 9. He keeps the Passover in the 18th year of his reign. And it says there in 2 Chronicles 35, 16 to 19, "So all the service of the Lord was prepared that day to keep the Passover, to offer burnt offerings on the altar of the Lord according to the command of King Josiah. And the people of Israel who were present kept the Passover at that time and the feast of the unleavened bread 7 days. No Passover like it had been kept in Israel since the days of Samuel the prophet. None of the kings of Israel had kept such a Passover as was kept by Josiah, and the priests and the Levites and all of Judah and Israel who were present, and the inhabitants in Jerusalem." But then we have the death of Josiah, found in chapter 35, verses 20 to 27. Josiah doesn't listen to the words of the Lord that come from the mouth of Neco, the king of Egypt of all people. And because Josiah did not listen to the Lord, he was killed in battle. It was a selfish and prideful act. And the deeds of Josiah in verse 26 are described as good of 2 Chronicles 35. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah and his good deeds. He was a king who did good deeds. Well, what can we learn from the life of Josiah? We've seen a lot of bad examples in the history of Israel and Judah, but what we see here is obedience leads to blessing. In the life of Josiah, we most certainly see the grace of God, the sovereignty of God, and that points us forward to Christ's amazing work on the cross, where Christ saves people by his amazing grace so that they can live a life of glory. But we also see the blessings of obedience. When we turn from sin, when we turn from idolatry, when we trust Christ alone, when we live for him alone, when we put to death sin, it leads to blessing. It leads to joy. And we see that Josiah was able to avoid the calamity that would later come upon Judah because they were unfaithful. He avoids it and he experiences God's blessing, even to the point where they celebrate God and his grace in the act of celebrating the Passover. Thanks for watching, and God bless.